All right, boys and girls, friends of his, welcome to Liberation Lighthouse. Um, this week, we're going to go into the first of a series of looking at different medicines, different things that can help out with uh, healing, with integrating, or even just coping with trauma, PTSD, anxiety, and emotional issues. We're going to start off the gateway drug of them all, the gateway medicine, if you will. We're going to go with marijuana. Today is all about the cannabis. That's what it is, medicinal therapy. And I am being a little lighthearted with this, but the truth is, for many, many, many years, a lot of these plants, a lot of these chemicals, a lot of these various things that have been created, because some of them are natural, some of the ones that we go into are man-made, have been used, though, by various cultures to help with what is essentially at the time would have been trauma, would have been PTSD. And so there's lineages of this. And simultaneously, we're seeing a resurgence where all of this is being brought back into science. And so it's being brought back into research. And you're finding that it's having massive effects and helping people, and often with way less side effects than some of the other options out there. So today is all about cannabis.
And if I may, cannabis is one of those medicines, drugs, if you would, that kind of rubbed me the wrong way when I first initially started doing some research on it. I always
Wait,
have
hold on.
this.
You rubbed it? I don't think that's how you use
Yeah,
it.
I used to tell my grandmother that. Um, it always invoked those Cheech and Chong stoner type images of the kids in high school that were obviously abusing it at an early age, and it didn't have that medicinal feeling to it for me. And as I got to thinking about it, I remembered my grandmother. Now, my grandmother was this tiny little Nahuatl lady. Nahuatl, for those of you that are not familiar, is an indigenous culture from Mexico. And I remember her having the pot leaves in rubbing alcohol. And she would put them in her temples and she would put them along her wrists. When I asked about it, I remember being a young child, when I asked about it, being told that it was for rheumatism,
Mm.
arthritis, right? And I didn't quite understand it. And as I grew up, of course, the cynical part of me went, "Oh, you're doing it wrong, Grandma. You're supposed to be smoking it, right?" Um, and yet, I think it was that just say no generation that, pot is the gateway drug, the big push from the government to demonize it, if you would. It kind of left a bad smell to it, if you would, skunkweed, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But as I did research on it, and as I kind of looked inward a little bit more, I realized that the government did demonize it for a long, long time, and especially because it was prevalent with the Mexican culture. Like I said, my grandmother was using it not in an abusive manner, but to extract the CBD oil from it
Hmm.
and that kind of a thing. Um, these are medicinal things. These are medicinal, naturally occurring plants that, if done properly, they can have good effects to us, right? Um, so just keep
Yeah.
that in
So
mind. If you're going to be smoking pot to just party, it's not going to be medicinal, right? If you are going to be doing it in a medicinal capacity, then it becomes medical, right? The marijuana part. So it's all on your intention and all on how you decide to use it.
yeah,
Okay.
and there's nothing wrong with either way, right? Like if you use it because you're gonna chill out and you're gonna watch a movie with friends or whatever else, it's beautiful. There's absolutely like nothing wrong with that. You know, be careful with the legalities and wherever you happen to live, but doesn't matter. Like I grew up with a lot of friends who smoked pot. I didn't myself. It's funny, I didn't find a lot of these medicines until much later in life, so I had a very different context for them. Um, but it doesn't matter. But if you're looking for the benefits that come with medicinal use, then intention, just like Rod said, intention is incredibly important. These are some of the lessons I've learned over the last decade of working with various medicines, understanding them. And what we're finding in a lot of the research is that the same thing is holding true. right? It's with cannabis, it's with MDMA, all of these. How they're used, the setting that they're used, the intention that they're used has dramatically different effects. And what is the central thing in that? It's you, it's me, it's the person having the experience, which means that we have a lot of control. We have a lot of influence over what's going to happen. And ultimately, that's just a reflection of just how powerful we are, that we are empowered and that we're an active part of this process. It's not happening to you, it's happening with you, it's happening through you.
Right. Well, let's go on to our next slide. Miracle marijuana. I always found it funny that it's marijuana in English, but it's marijuana in Spanish.
Is
While
it?
every state has laws dictating the use of medical marijuana, more than two-thirds of U.S. states, 19 and counting, including the District of Columbia, have actually legalized it for medical treatment, and more are considering bills to do the same. So it can be used for, and the list just went on and on and on, but I thought I would shorten this list to what we're talking about in this show. Okay. So for us, we're interested in anxiety, sleep, PTSD, and depression. Okay. Yes, we are aware that you can use it for appetite if you are, looking at chemotherapy. We are aware that CBD is good for the joints. I myself take it. I have a bum back. I might have mentioned it before, and I do find that it actually helps without giving me that numbness that the hydrocodone and the oxy stuff used to give me. I used to hate taking that other stuff because it would just put me out for a few days. But CBD oil, it helps me sleep. It reduces my anxiety. I wake up the next day. I'm actually able to walk around and function like a real human being. I'm a real boy.
So this is something I realize that we didn't put in the presentation, but I'd like to cover now. Um, So when we're talking about medical marijuana, right? You have both the compounds that include THC, i.e., the get high, or you have the stuff without it, which could be just pure CBD. They all have benefits, like CBD for inflammation of joints, for general health, for sleeping well, fantastic. A lot of the versions that help out with anxiety, although CBD can help with anxiety, but if you look at like the stuff for PTSD, depression, etc., it tends to be the stuff with THC. So just know that when you're going, you can talk to your friendly neighborhood medical marijuana consultant, which is the fancy name for a legal drug dealer, I guess, and they can guide you
Pharmacist.
through the process. Pharmacist, yeah.
Yes.
They can help to guide you through the process, though, which is really helpful. The beautiful thing about these things becoming legalized and being used is that A, you end up with more standardization. So, like when you get something, it gets consistent, and you know that it's about that same amount of active compound, same amount of medicine and everything. And you can ask for help, you can ask for advice, and you can be guided through this as well.
Just to give a little example from my life, I do take CBD oil. Just very recently, this past summer, I was turned on to CBD with THC. I was talking to my local clinician at my boutique store. It literally does look like an Apple store. Here in New Mexico, they have tons of them. Colorado, if your state has made it legal for recreational use, you have a lot of fancy looking ones now. But he was telling me that the THC actually helps with the absorption of the CBD, and they kind of work hand in hand. So if you are needing a little THC, I believe my pills have 5 milligrams of THC per however many milligrams of CBD. So that makes a difference, and that is just enough to get the absorption going and to stay in your joints a little bit longer versus just the regular CBD oil. Okay. So yes, talk to your
And
local.
yeah, and just to break in there, realize that one more slide we didn't put in that's well worth taking right now. Everybody is different. So everybody is different, but also everybody is different, right?
Right.
And so I say this because Rod said, it's only got 5 milligrams of THC. For him, like he won't even feel that. For me,
I'm a big 300
that's a
pound
bit of an
guy, folks.
experience, but also biology. So it's not only like the weight and everything else, but it's also biology. For me, that's an experience. that's something that I'm going to feel, and I'm going to feel in a very different way than Rod does. So we'll go into this later about personal responsibility and going slower, etc. But
Right.
realize when you do this, like what happens for Rod, what happens for Chris, what happens for you, what happens for your neighbor, what happens for your significant other, um, all different experiences. So take that with, I guess, take our experiences with a grain of salt and find out what your own experience is.
If you've never had it before, take it small, right? Especially the THC side, or just take the CBD without the THC if you're looking for that joint relief, right? So take them small.
Yep.
Make sure that you don't have an allergic reaction to it. It can cause migraines and all kinds of fun stuff along the way. So be cautious when approaching it. I would not suggest buying edibles because edibles take a long time to hit you. And if you end up eating a whole bag of gummy bears because you didn't feel a thing, you might end up in the ER later in that night. So
You can Google first stories of people who have eaten way more than they intended to.
right,
Yeah.
right. So keep that in mind. Everybody is different. So anxiety. We know that anxiety is a feeling of worry, tension, nervousness, or fear relating to a specific event or situation. People with anxiety often also experience some physical symptoms, including an increased heartbeat or sweating. Man, it must be anxious all the time. It is a normal reaction in response to stress or stressful situations. However, if people experience excessive anxiety, it can become a persistent problem. They may have an anxiety disorder, whether it be social anxiety. There are occasions where anxiety is the thing you're supposed to be feeling. Speaking in public, being nervous before going on stage, breaking bad news to a loved one. Those are good things to be anxious about, right? If it's an everyday occurrence where it's crippling you in your daily life, you may have an anxiety disorder. Marijuana, THC in particular, has proven to be effective dealing with anxiety. So, with all the research that I did, here's what I found. There are very few limited human clinical trials that look at cannabis to treat anxiety. However, growing evidence from animal studies to cannabis user surveys suggests that the drug can be effective, right? This is particularly the case when cannabis is in CBD oil form. So again, the CBD is the helping part, not as much as the THC. If you're not comfortable with the THC yet, go ahead and try some CBD.
And so
Measure
this is a
yourself.
place that I've known several people. I can think of two vets in particular. I can think of several people who've had high levels of anxiety, even PTSD, and to have something that could provide a calm. And we'll go into this versus like the opioids a little bit later, but to be able to have that calm and still be able to function in the world and not to have to worry about addiction or anything else. It's been a game changer in their lives. So this can be a really, really powerful tool to help there. Taking the scientific studies aside for a second and just talking about like people's personal experience and why I believe it could be helpful. Yeah.
Right. And moving on to our beautiful PTSD. Post traumatic stress disorder is a type of anxiety disorder triggered by traumatic experience. Causes for PTSD may include experiencing physical, emotional, or sexual abuse, whether as a child or as an adult, surviving a natural disaster, a tragic accident, a terrorist event, or acts of violence, being part of combat as a soldier or as a civilian, being an emergency responder and working at the site of a disaster that can be horrible sometimes. And the sudden death of loved ones may also trigger PTSD.
In addition, just to add to that, because often with PTSD, it's often thought of, and there can be challenges for people of, well, I was never in combat, so I can't experience that, or somebody else had it way worse than I did, so I'm I shouldn't have it, etc. Right? All when we're talking about trauma that stays in, it's an emotional experience, And the basis of it is, it doesn't matter what it was. It doesn't matter if it was combat or not combat. It doesn't matter if somebody died or didn't die. It doesn't matter if it was like, bloody and gory, or if it was like some minute thing. All it means is at the time, the person who experienced it had a certain amount of emotional capacity. And whatever it was, that event that happened, even if it seems like it was something that wouldn't affect them, because maybe at another point in their time in their life it wouldn't, but it was more emotional bandwidth, more emotional charge, more emotional energy than they could handle. That's it. That's what it
Yeah.
takes to create that type of experience, whatever that is. And so there's no judgment as to whether it was what we typically think of as a traumatic experience for PTSD or what we don't. It just means, like, for a little kid, like, or for an older adult, like, there's a capacity. That capacity was exceeded, and so to survive, what the nervous system, the body does, is it deals with it and copes with it, and it often stores some of that away, and then creates a pattern to try to avoid triggering that. And that pattern and that trigger is what makes it difficult to get along in life. That's it. So there's no judgment about how that occurred in your life. All it means is there was a capacity, it was exceeded, and then through the work, through the tools, through the medicines, you get to reverse that so you can go back to living a normal life.
I often felt that for all the crap that I saw, the thing that gave me the PTSD was like one of the most lighter sides of it. But again, like you said, the capacity, I was beyond capacity, and yeah, it you know, you never know what can do it. You know what's going to break you.
Yep.
That one straw that broke the camel's back.
100%. Exactly.
Well, and cannabis for PTSD. So cannabis use impacts the amygdala response of those dealing with trauma-related anxiety, such as PTSD. Previous research has shown that cannabis has the potential to reduce anxiety or even prevent heightened anxiety in threatening situations. So the low doses of THC showed measurable signs of reduced fear and anxiety in situations designed to trigger fear. Since these results were found in all the groups that were studied, it suggests that even those with PTSD were able to experience less fear with THC in their system. So, is it a cure? No. But by helping reduce the anxiety, your triggers aren't as explosive as they would be without it, right?
Or you might not hit that triggered point, right?
Or
So
you may,
again, this is another capacity thing, right? So imagine, like, we have X amount of capacity all the time, and then there's an emotional trigger for those who have had, a trauma that's been stored. But because of life, because of everything going on, you're always running at 80%, like, filled. It doesn't take much to just kick you over the edge. So something like cannabis can be used to, like, reduce the capacity, reduce the amount of strain on the system, giving you more capacity before something challenging happens, right? And you feel better. So it's a very beneficial coping and therapeutic use of this particular medicine.
Depression. And here's one that I was surprised. Research suggests that marijuana smokers are diagnosed with depression more often than non smokers, particularly regular heavy marijuana users. However, it does not appear that marijuana directly causes depression. This is one of those correlation versus causation things. It's likely that the genetic, environmental, or other factors that trigger depression can also lead to marijuana use. So some people with depression may use marijuana as a way to detach from their depressive systems. However, heavy users may appear depressed as a result of the dulling effect of the drug on feelings and emotions. So here's the deal. You don't smoke marijuana and get depressed. You're depressed and you smoke marijuana and it doesn't get you out of it. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
So when we really talk about what the healing path is for a lot of these things, essentially, at the end of the day, it's feeling and processing and releasing the emotions, right? So to help through very challenging times, and even with depression and everything else, it can be a very useful tool. However, like all tools, you You can use an axe to cut wood and get what you need. You can use an axe to do horrible things, right? It's a tool.
Right.
And so you can use it to numb yourself out and not feel the things that need to be felt and, be in a haze. But you can do the same thing by eating. You can do the same thing by watching Netflix. You can do the same thing in many other ways. So understanding what your intention is, why you're using it, and whether you're using it truly to be able to move forward in your life, or you're using it to avoid your life. Like, being honest with yourself about that is absolutely key. And I'm not sitting here preaching. What I'm saying is this is something I've learned, because some of the greatest tools I've had, there have been times in my life that I've definitely used them to avoid what I didn't want to face as well.
Right. So this is very much like drinking so you don't feel feelings anymore.
Yeah.
The association between cannabis and depression may be stronger among men during adolescence, and emerging adulthood, and stronger in women during midlife. There is an indication for potential genetic correlation contributing to the comorbidity of cannabis dependence and major depression, namely that serotonin 5-HT may mediate such
5-HTP, if
5-H
I may.
that I do a typo 5-HTP
It's
may
okay.
mediate
Yeah,
such an
no worries.
association, and there is also evidence for specific risk alleles for cannabis addiction. So you can become addicted to it. For as much as cannabis is given the not as an addictive substance as, say, alcohol or other drugs, if you are predisposed to it, it can become an addictive substance for you. Again, everybody and every body. We are all just a little bit different.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
All right. So legalization. So in the U.S., the use and possession of cannabis is illegal under federal law for any purpose pursuant to the Controlled Substance Act of 1970. Under the CSA, cannabis is classified as a Schedule I substance, determined to have a high potential for abuse and no accepted medicinal use or medical use, thereby prohibiting even medical use of the drug. However, at the state level, policies regarding the medical and recreational use of cannabis vary greatly, state by state, city by city, town by town, and in many states conflict significantly with federal law. The medical use of cannabis is legal with a doctor's recommendation in 37 states. Again, that is the medical marijuana, the medical use of it. 4 out of 5 permanently inhabited U.S. territories and the District of Columbia, where medicinal marijuana is legal. 12 other states have laws that limit THC content. The purpose of allowing access to the products that are enriched cannabinoidal, CBD, and non-psychoactive compounds of cannabis. Although cannabis remains a Schedule I drug, and I might mispronounce this, Rohrabacher? Yeah, say that 5 times as fast as you can.
Hey, look, if we're going to have outtakes in this show,
Yeah,
I think that
it's
we
gonna be
know
me.
exactly one of the outtakes.
R-O-H, Rohrabacher. Far. I'm just going to call him RF. The amendment prohibits federal prosecution of individuals complying with state medical cannabis laws. The recreational use of cannabis is now legal in 19 states. Just last month, December 2021, I believe Alabama became the 19th state. And it's also legal in the District of Columbia, the Northern Mariana Islands, and Guam. Another 13 states in U.S. and the U.S. Virgin Islands have decriminalized its use. Again, legal and decriminalize are 2 different things. Make sure that you understand which is which. There is a great article on Wikipedia, which is at the bottom of this, if you'd like to learn more, or just go to Wikipedia and look up cannabis laws. Let's see. Commercial distribution of cannabis has been legalized in all jurisdictions where possession has been legalized, except the District of Columbia. Personal cultivation for recreational use is allowed in all of these jurisdictions, except Washington State and New Jersey. Although the use of cannabis remains federally illegal, some of its derivative compounds have been approved by the Food and Drug Administration for prescription use. Cannabinoid drugs, which have received FDA approval, are Marinol, THC, Syndros, THC, Sesament, which is a nabilone, and Epidiolex, cannabidiol. For non-prescription use, cannabidiol and delta-8 THC derived from industry hemp are legal at the federal level, but legality and enforcement vary state by state. And as Chris and I were talking, in the great state of Texas, where it's all illegal, within the Austin city area, it is considered a decriminalized or legal. I didn't quite get that part.
Yeah, it's more accepted. I don't know if it's actually been decriminalized yet, but there are clinics, because we're going to talk about some of the therapeutic uses of this as well. There are some clinics that are beginning to utilize it and other compounds like MDMA, etc. So the short version of that is it's a weird thing where the federal government says, "Yo, you can't use it," and then the states go, "F you, we can use it," right?
But do what we want. It's a free country.
We do what we want. So just be really careful. Understand what your local laws are. Go by the local laws. We just don't want anybody out there. There are way too many people in the prison system, which is another story, for BS stuff related to small possession charges and all the rest of it, right? So be careful. That's the message we're giving. Know that your risks are. Take responsibility for those risks. And find the tools and medicines that work for you and keep you out of jail.
And if you are in a decriminalized state, try to figure out how much is allowed to be decriminalized, because you're going to reach a point where if 2 grams might be legal, 3 may not, right?
Yeah.
So don't cross that line. That's a hard line for most law enforcement agencies.
One of the benefits, though, if we're talking about this, and what I really appreciate about the legalization as it's gone on, whether it's fully legalized in completely, or whether it's just medicinal or whatever else, is this is a pathway that many of the other medicines and tools that we're looking at will begin to take as well, right? And so by this being successfully done, then if you start to look at what could be done then for psilocybin, MDMA, and the rest of it, it's a pathway that can be proven. And so to see the decriminalization or possibly even the legalization of other compounds may happen faster than the incredible number of years it's taken marijuana to begin to get a majority of the U.S.
I guess it is a gateway drug.
Well played. Well played.
So how do you get it? Well, to get medical marijuana, if you're in one of those states that medical marijuana is allowed, you need a written recommendation or prescription from a licensed doctor. Not every doctor is going to be willing to recommend medical marijuana for whatever it is that might be ailing you. You may have a condition that qualifies for medical marijuana use. Each state has its own list of qualifying conditions. So we're not going to say, hey, go to your doctor and tell them you got this. It's not going to work, right? Each state has its own list of how they can give you that prescription. Your state may also require you to get a medical marijuana ID card so they can keep track of you and put you in a database somewhere so that when you screw up, they know exactly where you are. No paranoia here. Once you have that card, you are now free to go to your local dispensary and purchase set amount of medical marijuana. Some states, if you're lucky, have legalized the recreational use of cannabis. You must be 21 years of age or older to purchase. And like I said, I live in a state where I can actually walk into what looks a little bit like an Apple store. You know, they got boutique shops, no longer these, I remember when I was a kid, you always had those smoke shops that sold bongs and that kind of thing.
No.
In my mind, that's where you went to go get pot. But
yeah, exactly.
Now you go to an Apple store.
Those were tobacco pipes. Okay.
Yes.
Only for use with tobacco.
Water bongs.
Yeah.
Water bongs. Yes.
And this is changing. Like I said, Rod's in New Mexico. I'm often in South Dakota. It's my resident state and where I spend most of my time. And I thought it was going to be one of the holdouts, one of the last ones to go. And the I think it was the end of 2020 actually. It was voted in to allow it, and so recreational marijuana is moving through South Dakota as well. Sharing that, just that you never know, in state by state where it can go, and even on this, like again, to be updated. But they actually did full legalization of medicinal and recreational use of marijuana.
Oh, they did. I thought it was only North Dakota for my research, but I guess I'm wrong. This my map is old, folks. I am a couple of months old on the map.
This is this is
Go.
all changing so fast, right? So
Yes.
that's why it's important. Like, see what we're here, take in what we're sharing with you, and check what's most recent for you.
Again, there's plenty of websites out there that can tell you what states have done what with it, and what those for those that are decriminalized, what the allowed amounts are per state. So
All
cannabis
right.
versus opioids. Are we ready for this one?
Yeah, so this is where I want to start shifting from a little bit of the okay, so here's what medical marijuana is, here's the legalities, etc. And let's get down into what are the benefits? Like why would you go down this route versus just whatever the you might have been prescribed, whether it's from the VA or from your doctor or whatever else. And there's one friend I can think of very specifically. I won't say his name. He's somebody that I helped through some challenging times. And he was originally given prescriptions for opioids and other narcotics from the VA. Again, they're just trying to help him. But what he found was a lot of challenges, being numbed out on life, feeling disconnected. His vitality and desire to actually engage in life, to do things, just kept going down and down. He began to have problems with depression. So then it was like, okay, well, here's another round of prescriptions and stuff that you could be on, SSRIs, and it just became a very challenging thing for him. And what he found as he was beginning to get turned on to some alternative, because at the time for him, this was an alternative medicine and one that he was resistant to because of how he was brought up. But what he found was moving to cannabis versus the opioids. Um, he had way more control over reducing his anxiety. So, like, there's two different things that can kind of happen here. Often with opioids, it can feel like a numbing out. So you're like numbing out the world, which reduces the anxiety, or at least your perceived anxiety. Or with cannabis, it can often promote a feeling of calm, right? You're kind of like filling up with a feeling of calm, but you can be more present in the world. And you can really control your dosage, especially if you're smoking, by just how much you take in, the strain that you take in, and because of the immediate effects of smoking something or vaping something, which can be healthier, rather than taking pills. Um, and so to be able to engage in life, to be able to be present, to be able to have more control over like whether you like feel you want to be active or not. And I've known a lot of people. This surprised me coming in from feeling that there was a lot of. One second. Yeah. So this surprised me when we were looking at coming from a background where a lot of people I knew smoked pot and would just like laze out and not do anything. I began to know more and more people who would smoke pot and do jujitsu or go out kayaking or like run. And I began to meet a lot of very active people who are engaging strongly in life while using marijuana, cannabis, THC. And it began to change the way I felt around that. And so, like, knowing those things, seeing the changes in this man, this incredible man who was, at one point feeling like depressed and like just disconnected from the world. And quite honestly, I didn't have a lot of hope for him as much as I cared about him, to seeing somebody who could begin to embrace their life and was using this tool to cope, but then giving himself the bandwidth to step forward in other ways and in other therapies so that he could also move toward cure was incredible. And he didn't have a lot of the challenges with addiction. Like Rod said, everybody and every body is different, and anybody can be addicted to anything, right? Just depends on what it is. But it didn't have the same addictive qualities for him. And so he could use it when he needed to use it. He didn't have to use it when he didn't have to use it. And it gave him so much more leeway in life with far fewer side effects. The side effects for him was he snacked a bit more. He slept better, which was a side effect, which was incredible for him. Um, and his house smelled a bit of weed. Like those were the side effects. Great, way better than the life that he was living before. So I'm not saying that cannabis is absolutely the right choice for you and is better for you than opioids. What I'm saying is it may be, and it's
It may
well
be.
worth considering and looking into, and even testing for yourself, or talking to somebody that you truly trust to find out that there isn't a silver bullet for everyone, but this could be one of those tools that helps you have some bandwidth to be able to get out of the hole enough to be able to fix your life.
I do have to say, having some experience with the opioids. For a little while there, the VA was giving them away like candy. I mean, I could literally, they might as well give you a Pez dispenser every time that you go in.
Yeah.
Um, and I started weaning myself off of them because it became such a heavy thing. If I took one pill, I'm not remembering the milligrams exactly, but if I took one pill of the hydrocodone that I was given to help with my back, um, I would lose a day. I mean, like, I might have been aware, but I wasn't there. It just
Hmm.
there was no going to class that day. There wasn't no going to work that day. There wasn't. I mean, you would just lose a day. So I would only take them when my pain was so severe that I couldn't move, and even then, I would wait for Saturday night to
Hmm.
pop it in the evening, just because I knew I wasn't going to come out of it till the following day around midday. Yeah.
Hmm.
So, and our good friend
Yeah.
Josh has a question for us,
Hmm.
and it says, "Is any version of cannabis, either the CBD, THC, or both, safe to use with other medications or alcohol? Does one need to consider drug interactions before using?" And the answer is, we don't know. Everybody and everybody, right? If you're
Yeah.
taking medications on a regular basis for something or another, I would probably play at the safe side and say, don't take those meds that day that you're going to try it, right? Talk to your doctor, talk to your clinician. With alcohol, I really don't recommend, downing a bottle of Jack Daniels with some pills. It just seems like a bad idea to me. It's just, um,
Yeah.
they're both the presence, alcohol and marijuana. So again, are you taking this for medicinal purposes, or do you plan to party with it? Right? Are you
Or
passing
or
a
numb out, right?
Yeah? Are you passing a joint at a
They're
party?
all, yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
one of the benefits can be that as a whole, cannabis has far fewer interactions with other drugs than many other medicines or drugs out there. So it can be very helpful there. Again, but talk to your doctor
yeah.
because even when we start talking about other medicines, this is going to be super important. Like SSRIs and other medicines like psilocybin or ayahuasca or anything else, like do not go together. Like no bueno. You don't want to mix a lot of things. And so what we're going to share, because neither Rod nor I are doctors, is for interactions and challenges like that, talk to your doctor. Like get some real professional advice there to know exactly what medications you're on, how they might interact, and what protocol you might want to use for reducing a set of medications to be able to utilize, cannabis or any other medicine.
And you can tell it's serious when Chris starts using his Spanish. No bueno.
No bueno.
Smoking versus edibles. Smoking are
I'm
right. Are you passing a joint at a
gonna
party
laugh
and
on
drinking
this
some beers?
one. No, I'm
Smoking,
laughing at
easier to
this one
control
because
the dosage for beginners. You feel the effects immediately, and it usually lasts 2 to 3 hours. Edibles often take an hour to feel the effects, and it can last over 8 hours. THC is metabolized to 11 hydroxy THC, which is more potent and psychoactive, meaning you're going to see pretty stars.
yeah, so this is the story that everybody, well, not everybody, a lot of people have heard. If you haven't heard it, talk to somebody who's done an edible for the first time and has made the mistake of, I don't feel this. Let me just have another one. Um, uh, So what happens is when you smoke it, you feel it immediately. It's beautiful. You can adjust your dosage. You can take just tiny little puffs, like whatever it is that you might want to do, and it's not going to last super long. Great way to start out. I remember the first edible I had. Again, this is back before I got to the medicine side of all of. I had my first edible. It was a pot brownie, and never had one before. Matter of fact, I didn't really smoke or anything else at the time, so a lot of this was me. And I was high 24 hours later, and I am not joking about 24 hours later. Like I was still high, and I'm like, will this ever end? Will it end? Please stop. Please stop. And I've
This is
known
your life
other
now.
people. It's just, oh my God, I've broken my brain, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I've known other people as well because it takes so long for it to come on, right? It's like, oh, well, I had one and it's been about an hour. I should be feeling it now. Okay, pop another one. And because edibles are substantially more powerful for the amount of THC. I mean, substantially. I don't know the exact number, but I remember hearing the terms like 2 or 3 times more powerful, right? Um, because of that, people have had experiences and then realize it's going to last. At the short side, if you're lucky, 4 to 6 hours. If you're not lucky, way longer than that. You're going to have that experience for a while. Now, you're not going to overdose. You can't like really physically overdose marijuana or anything else. You're not going to overdose on it. You're not going to have any of those things, but you may have a very unpleasant experience for an extended period of time. So start low and go slow. Start low and go slow.
I like that. Like a little limerick there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Symptom relief versus root cause therapy. Both symptom relief and root cause therapy have their benefits. While cannabis is often used as symptom relief, lower anxiety, promote a feeling of calmness and well being, and improve sleep. In certain settings, it is also used as a medicine, which was combined with therapy, which, when combined with therapy, can help resolve or cure underlying root causes of anxiety, trauma, or PTSD. New therapies are on the leading edge now, and we are tracking them. So,
Yeah. Very specifically, like to get into this. So, um, I had some experiences early on with pot in my 20s and let's say early to mid 30s. And it was slightly recreational, but I would also use it for anxiety and other things like there. But again, it's almost always been a medicine for me. But strangely, with where I am now, like it is a real medicine for me. What I mean is every body is different and you change over time. So if I smoke pot, um, I don't just get calm and chill and want to like take a nap and eat a bunch of munchies. Um, I'm put in touch with the anxiety and fears in my nervous system. It feels like I'm put in touch with my body and I feel all of those come up and through. And it's generally for me right now an unpleasant experience.
hmm,
Um, However, one of the benefits of that is I've learned of a new therapist, and a new therapy protocol that uses cannabis because for some people and in the right settings and with the right guidance, that's exactly what it does. They think of it as like tilling the things up in order to clear out the nervous system. So in February, middle of February, I'm having my first session with a therapist with a new protocol utilizing these tools. And I care about it for my own journey, for my own clearing out the nervous system, for getting to an even lower level of anxiety and safety and embodying that. And I will bring everything that I learn back to this group. So typically, you don't hear about it being utilized in therapeutic settings. You hear about ketamine or MDMA or psilocybin or other tools first. But more and more, I'm actually finding this used. And then if you go back to some of the cultural usages of it, if we go back to some of the ceremonies that were put around it by indigenous tribes and stuff, you're seeing that it was used sometimes for that type of thing as well. Um, so the core difference here again between symptom relief and root cause therapy would be reducing your symptoms, really important when you're close to the edge, right? Like being able to feel less anxiety, feel more calm, to have more bandwidth to handle the stuff that comes through day to day. That is awesome. There is nothing wrong with that. That is awesome. And then with that space, to be able to get into what is really going on that is causing these triggers, that is causing this emotional pain, that is causing this anxiety, and then use the right tools. For me, cannabis is going to be one of them coming up next month, but to use these tools to then clear out those root causes so that then whoosh, they're not happening. And then your bandwidth is just naturally higher. You have more capacity in your bandwidth as a whole. That's how I choose to live. Again, everybody's choice is right. Like whatever is right for you is perfect. I choose to utilize these tools so that day to day, moment to moment, for the rest of my life, I get to live in more peace, in more harmony, with more capacity, with more consciousness, to enjoy life more, to enjoy my friends more, to put energy into things that I love and care about. And that's why I choose to go through a lot of things that are challenging, but to get to that root cause and then to integrate it, to understand it, to release it. Whatever needs to be done with that, to feel it, to process it, whatever needs to be done with that, so that my life, every moment afterwards, for that, the compounding effects of having a clearer, more centered, more peaceful life. That's what I choose. You get to choose what's right for you.
It's interesting that you said that as we try it in different stages of our lives, it may have a different reaction. Um, when I first tried smoking cannabis, I was in my mid 20s. That was a long time ago. I ended up getting a really bad migraine that lasted for about 4 hours. Um, a little bit further on that year, I tried it again, this time in a different situation. First time was at a party. And I thought, well, maybe the alcohol, or maybe I'm allergic to something, or maybe it might have been Lay's. I don't know. Something about it it didn't agree with me. So a few more months down the road, I tried it in another situation, and I had the same effect. And for the longest time, just the smell of it would trigger a migraine almost. It
Mm.
just became that strong. And here we are, 20 some odd years down the road. Um, I can still smell it. I definitely smell it in the CBD oil pills. I can definitely smell it when I go to the cannabis shop and that kind of thing. Uh, but I found the guy gave me a small single to test out before he would sell me the CBD with THC pills. And so I did smoke a small 5 milligram joint, if you would, and I didn't have that effect. However, I found that I don't get that buzz or that high or that anything. I just get a little sleepy. So Rod, 20 some odd years ago, different experience than Rod, now. Um, again, and I've tried some edibles as well. They don't seem to cause much of a difference, other than I just feel a little sleepy. I don't feel enlightened or buzzed or high or anything like that. I just want to go take a nap.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So good. I had this effect back then because I think my sleep with my PTSD was basically non-existent, and maybe my anxiety would have calmed down. But because I had it had that side effect with me, I was not willing to go any further to try and help alleviate some of the symptoms of my PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
Just a tidbit.
And helpful, keep in mind.
Yeah.
So this is going to become important now, especially if you start utilizing um, it as a medicine or as an edible, or beginning having some of the more psychoactive experiences with cannabis. But even more so, you're going to hear us repeat this in probably the next several shows. Um, there's an old adage around psychedelics, but around any medicine, that set and setting are incredibly important. And what this means is that you're setting a container. You'll hear people use this word. Okay, you have the container for this, you have the container for this. What the F is a container? All it means is that you have a certain setting and space and mindset within that place, right? Like think of it as like a little bubble around wherever you happen to be. And mindset is incredibly important, right? So using a medicine especially one that happens to be psychedelic, which typically smoking marijuana isn't, but if you do edibles, it can be. Or if we start talking about the other medicines that we're going to get into in coming up shows. If you're going to do that and you're in a very, very challenging and triggered space, you're full of fear, you're already paranoid, something is going on, that may be a big challenge for you. You want to go in as even keel as possible. Now, when you're smoking marijuana to reduce anxiety or anything else, it's not something that you have to worry so much about. You just get to be able to realize that calmness come in, the reduction of anxiety. But when you're doing deeper work, it's important. And then setting, like, okay, are you doing this in the middle of Times Square? Are you doing this someplace that you already feel on edge? Are you doing this in someplace that's unpredictable, where you have to be alert? Are you doing this someplace peaceful and calm, someplace that feels like you're in nature, someplace that feels safe? Are you doing this someplace where you know you're not going to be bothered, and so you don't have to be alert, right? So you can actually like feel safe and relax into the experience and allow the experience to happen. And then in addition to set and setting, intention is incredibly important. Rod got into this earlier, and you're going to hear me repeat this so many times that you'll probably get tired of it, but it's important to know intention is key, right? I have experienced marijuana and cannabis for just relaxing. I just want some giggles perspective before. I've used it as a deep medicine to help me heal parts of my nervous system. The intention is very different there. I've taken small doses of psilocybin because I found it for a little while better than drinking at parties because I was still present. I didn't get a hangover, and it took some of the anxiety away that when I would go to parties. I've also used it for some of the deepest, most healing work in my life. And so the intention that you go into something with makes an incredible difference. Like, and just be honest with yourself. Like if you're using this to like just I want to feel better and I just want to go out and you don't even have to party, but I just want to have a nice fun experience, then say that. You don't have to pretend it's medicine to go do that. No. You're using this to have a good time. Fucking great. Like just about it. If you used to avoid feeling something, right? Just be honest with yourself about it. Even if you're not honest with other people around you, with yourself at least, promote more and more honesty. No, I'm using this because quite honestly, I don't feel like I can deal with X, Y, or Z right now. Cool, you're being honest. If you're using it as a true medicine, I have these patterns in my life. I'm tired of living this way. I'm tired of feeling this way. And so, with the help and the guidance of other people, especially used in therapeutic settings, right? I'm going to use this as a medicine. And we're going to focus in on the things that need to be understood, need to be felt, need to be processed, need to be released. I'm going to free and liberate myself with them. That intention is incredible. Another intention of, I don't know what's going to happen, but I trust that this process will help me and I'm just going to be open to the experience. Another beautiful intention, but they're all different. And the experience you have and what's going to come from that is going to be wildly different for every intention. And I'm sharing this to say you are a key part of this. This is not happening to you. It's happening with you and through you. Like you are an active participant in this. You're not just some like person whose things are happening to. So like I said, you're going to hear me say this over and over again, but setting, and intention are the keys to whether this is healing for you or whether it's just another distraction.
Thank you. And with great power comes great responsibility, right? So personal responsibility, to quote a Spider-Man, or what was that? Uncle Ben. No, not the guy from the Rice, the other one, the white one. The basis of personal empowerment is owning responsibility. You got to own it. It's yours, right? For your whole life. In other words, personal responsibility. We are not gurus. We're trying to get there, but we're not gurus, right? We are guides who believe in your empowerment. We believe in you. In that light, we will share our experiences, and I believe Chris has a lot more than I do, and what has been shown to be true. We will guide towards what may be the most helpful for you. However, it is your responsibility to choose what is best for you. So listen well, feel into your mind, heart, and body and as what is true for you. Make your own choice. Start small, reflect, learn. If you wish to push on, then add a little bit more. Measure it. Everybody and everybody, right? Do more of what works, do less of what doesn't. Continue. Here's the kicker: we want you to evolve, right? We want you to grow with us.
What you'll hear from us, and I take this as key. This is actually one of the ways that I look at uh, this actually affects me and trust in people, right? People who, for me, want me to feel empowered, want me to take greater ownership of my life, want me to have greater capacity, are helping me realize like my own abilities, realizing that the only person who can heal me is me. Like I trust those people. Like they're really taking a stand to say like we all, each of our individuals, like we are powerful and we are sovereign and we can have our own responsibility. For the people out there who go, listen to me. I've got all the answers, and you just need to trust every word that comes out of my mouth and do everything that I say. Like, like that's the beginning of a cult, right? Like,
Send me
no
your money and
bueno.
God will love you.
Yeah. If somebody wants all your attention, all your money, or all the sexual like favors, like run. Like that is the beginning of a cult, right? And so I mean this. I truly believe that the greatest gift that we have been given is free will. And we're not free in every moment because we do a lot of things unconsciously, especially from the pains and the experiences we've had from the past. But as we go forward, we become more and more conscious and we have more and more capacity for free will. And that gift means not only do then we get to choose the pathway of our life and have more and more, we're more and more a participant in it. We're more and more even in control of it, more and more engaged in it. But there's more responsibility, right? So the more the choice is ours, that means that the more that we have to own the responsibility for the choices that we make and the effects that that has on ourselves and on other people. I personally believe that that's the path of liberation, the path that I've chosen to go on. You don't have to choose this path. I can't force you to do anything. I wouldn't want to force you to do anything. Neither would Rod. That's what I love about this man. But if you choose that for yourself, then I believe that this is one of the greatest pathways that can be taken in life. Because what I hope for you is that you get to live the life that you're truly here to live. And only you know what that life looks like. Only you know what that means. But that does mean that when we get into the healing stuff, you have to feel in and find out what's right for you. All the advice that we give, we're not saying for you specifically, Fred, out there, this is what you need to do. Put this in your mouth and you're going to be just fine. We're not saying that. What we're saying is, here are the tools that we have found most effective. Here's our experiences. Here's the science and data to back it up. Give it a try, or at least talk to somebody who knows even more than we do. Figure out for yourself what feels right. Go low.
Go slow.
Start low. That's it. Start low, go slow. Man, I make up sayings and I don't remember them. Start low and go slow. Reflect, learn, and then just keep it evolving. When I began this process of learning a lot of these medicines over a decade ago now, I didn't know anybody who did this. I began to find resources. I began to find people to talk to. But a lot of what I learned was, all right, you're supposed to take X amount of this. All right, what's a quarter of that do? What's an eighth of that do? I have no idea what this means, and I don't want to go effing crazy or like all the stories and stuff that I've heard. And so I just took a very moderated approach to it, and it served me really, really well. So yeah,
I don't know, that
believe
edible story doesn't sound like a moderated approach, but
okay.
Oh.
Actually, that's fascinating. I never made that connection. I really wonder if that having happened influenced how I approach stuff later on. Because that happened about 2 years, I think it was about 2 years, maybe 3 years before I began this path of experimentation and learning for healing purposes. That's fascinating. I think that actually played a part in it.
Like,
Thank you.
I can't feel my face. It's been 3 days.
I'm broken. I broke myself.
Yeah.
But like at its core, like Rod and I truly believe, like we believe in you.
We
We
do.
really do. Really believe in you. Believe that you are powerful. Believe that you are worthy. Believe you are deserving. Believe that each and every one of us deserves to live a damn good life.
And we have a comment from Susan Owen. And I'm not sure what this is. It looks like a little bit of chemistry here. Nitrogen, oxygen, S and C. Is this a
I'm taking it
recipe?
as I'm taking it as either that's the recipe for crystal meth or it's like nice sight, man.
Noise sight. I like that. That's how
Yeah,
the kids are typing it these days.
yeah.
Noise
Thank you,
sight.
Susan. I
Thank you.
appreciate you.
You know, I'm too old. I've been teaching high school. You think I would get some of these, but no, no. It's
Yeah.
just yeah. Thank you, Susan. Much appreciated.
Um,
And with that, if you or anybody you know is suffering from substance abuse or needs mental health services, please contact SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Medical Health Services Administration. To find a facility near you, follow this website at https:// findtreatment.gov. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 1 800 273 TALK. That's 1 800 273 8255. If you need behavioral health help, contact the Behavioral Health Treatment Locator at https:// findtreatment.samhsa.gov. And the SAMHSA National Helpline, of course, is 1 800 662 4357. And with that, Chris, any other words of wisdom for our viewers?
the last thing I'm going to say is like you're going to hear, and this will continue throughout the rest of this because of how Rod and I are and how we operate together. You're going to hear us laugh. You're going to hear us make jokes. You're going to hear us be serious, like all the full range. Because a lot of this laughter is incredibly helpful and healing, and it alleviates a lot of the heaviness of the challenging experiences we've had, or even um, the uh, the trauma and the hurt that we've experienced ourselves or felt with other people. But on this thing in particular, especially if you are feeling at that point where, just be blunt, you don't feel like you want to live, or you're feeling something worse. I've been there. I had spent many years there. I have many friends who've done that same thing. If you're feeling that way, reach out. Reach out to somebody who's going to help you. Reach out to these hotlines. Get some help. Like, really do. If you won't do it for yourself, do it for somebody who loves you. If you don't have anybody you feel that loves you, like, do it because we're asking you to. But do it and reach out and get that help. I get it. I know what it's like to feel that. And it hurts and it's not easy. And there are better and brighter days ahead. I know that. I've lived it. I've been there. So we're going to laugh, we're going to joke, and we're also going to get serious when the time needs to be serious. So take care of yourself. This life isn't easy, but I really believe it's fucking worth it. Ain't easy, but it's fucking worth it. So yeah, take care of yourself.
And I concur with everything Chris said. And you know what? You've made it this far, and you made it this far on your own. So try to get a little bit better and see if you can make it even further. Our buddy
100%.
Josh's comment on a humorous side of this conversation. Any flavor recommendations? Um, Again, everybody. I'm not a big fan of the black licorice, just in general.
Mm, yeah. I go for sour apple or maybe watermelon.
And honestly, for me, every edible that I've smelt or tasted, which isn't that many, I've only began um, tasting those about 6 months ago, and I've only had a couple, but they all had that very
Hmm.
cannabis smell to them, for lack of a better term.
Hmm.
Where yeah, it doesn't always agree with me. Like I said, just the smell of it will almost trigger a sort of like a little migraine for it. So The times I have taken the edibles, when I do take the CBD oil, I prefer the pills just because I don't like to taste it. I don't like to smell it. I just need it to do its thing, you know? So everybody, I'm sure they got all kinds of flavors and all kinds of things for you to try.
All right.
All
Well,
right.
you beautiful, beautiful beings out there, have an incredible week. Thank you for spending some time with us, and truly hope this has been helpful.
Love you folks. Next week we'll be here on the same bad channel at the same bad time. Hope you catch us then. Good night.